in New York City, and she went to stay. Well, they had that set up, I guess, that she was to go with that one family when she got here in the States. So I think they were English people, and they took her in, and she worked for them, and for her room and board and stuff, you know, and what else, I have no idea what all it entailed, but anyway, she was there for quite a number of years as she grew up, because she was 12 when she came over. And then I don't know just how old she was when she got married, but, you know, she had to be somewhere like past 16, I'm sure, before she got married. Mm-hmm. She had a good-sized family. But then when they got married, then they came east here to Wisconsin, and they cleared the land there and had their farm. And they worked on that. They lived there then the rest of their lives on that land that they cleared there. And
that's Grandma and Grandpa Severson.
Grandma and Grandpa Severson, yeah. And now you started by asking me what was the story
about the crow.
About my crow, yes. And I was going to get her situated there so that it made sense. Well, when my mother was going with my dad, of course, and well, they went to the same church in Cambridge and everything, and so they, you know, knew each other. Grandpa had the Grandpa Charlesburg had the flower feed store on Main Street in Cambridge, and Grandma and Grandpa Severson had the farm out there, and anyway, my dad and she started going together, and I know he used to tell about Aunt Amanda. I'm not sure if she was the oldest one or Aunt Jessie, but anyway, Aunt Amanda was always the one that was there. And if it got to be time, she thought he had come out to see my mother, and it was time he ought to be going home. She'd get the broom and say, "Well, it's time for you to get out of here." No, he used to tell about that, you know. Crazy. But anyway, in the end, they ended up getting married, and of course had me, and then found out that they couldn't have any more children right away after that, their first child. But Grandma was that by that time. Grandpa had died. He died before my mother got married because he had a skin cancer on his nose, being a farmer, and they couldn't treat that at that time. And a skin cancer on his nose killed him. And my mother was studying to be a beautician up in a beauty shop in Madison. And she had just gone through the hair and the nails, the manicuring and the shampooing stuff and that. She was that far along. And she quit to come home and take care of Grandpa. So, and then she never went back to it again. And she and my dad had gotten married, but that way I never got to see my Grandpa Severson at all. She was married before that. So Grandma and my mother's two brothers ran the farm, Uncle Sam and Uncle Oscar. Uncle Oscar was blind on one eye and almost blind on the other, but he could still manage with that one, you know, halfway eye to still read the papers a little. But they had sent him to the school for the blind in Janesville, so he could read Braille, and he did get some publications in Braille too. And that. But anyways, things would go along, and then pretty soon there'd be so many crows around Grandma's place, eating all, getting at the corn in the corn crib and stuff like that. And so she'd talk to my dad, "Can't you come up and get rid of some of those crows for me? You know, they're stealing my livelihood up here." So he'd go up and kill a few crows for her, then to get the population down again. And this one time, he had killed, you know, the older ones, and there was a young crow that he saved that was there, and he saved it and brought it home for me. And that's how I got my pet crow, because then we clipped his wings so that he couldn't, we tried to watch and keep him clipped so he couldn't fly. But he couldn't fly very far, and he was a very nice pet. But also you had to be careful with him, because he liked to sit on your shoulder, and he'd get on my hand and stuff, and then they'd look at the teeth. They want to, you're talking, they want to try if they can't pick at your teeth and weird things like that. And I know one time he did, and we weren't watching close enough, and his wings got a little too long again, and he could fly, because he flew away one night in the morning. He was sitting on the neighbor's roof. But we got him down again, and of course, he was tamed and he liked people, and so he was nice, you know. And so but I had him for several years, and I don't know what he died. You know, birds do get different kinds of diseases, and I don't know what happened to him, but he died. We weren't very. We didn't come up with any great name for him, but we called him Blackie because he was real. He was a black crow, very black, and we just called him Blackie. And of course, we all felt so bad, and all the kids in the neighborhood liked Blackie too. And so we had on the lot where our house was there. We buried him in the back there and had a ceremony and everything. Buried him, but he was a lot of fun while I had him. A nice little different kind of a pet.
Mm-hmm.